I don't know how many of you have ever met me or seen me, but this is one of the presentations I also presented with Writer Dogs Australia, which I have modified a little bit here. So I would want to start with how did I become a lone writer? So I started my journey as a developer with Infosys, and um, while working as a developer, I realized that my interest lies a lot with writing. After 2.5 or 3 years of working, I switched to writing full time. I started working as a content writer, and little did I know that accidentally I switched to technical writing. And since then, it's been 4 years of my tech writing journey. And that's when with this startup with which I'm working right now in Bangalore, that's when I realized that I was the only person who was working on the entire journey throughout, from scratch to the deliverable. I was the one who was working for the entire documentation part. And I think there were a lot of people who were in the same boat, and we didn't have something to share. How do I share my struggles with? Whom do I ask that if this is right, if this is wrong? Because there are so many problems when you don't have someone to give feedback on. So that's how it started. So I'm going to just start by letting you know the actual stats that we have of lone writers. And I think we also took a poll from the TWT community, and I also have included those stats over here. So I'll start with the global stats, that how many lone writers there are actually globally. So this is from Tom Johnson's website, I'd Rather Be Writing. So I think a lot of you might be knowing him because he's like the API documentation maven here, and a lot of people know him. So he conducted a survey through his website where he gathered over 2,000 people. He gathered a survey from 2,000 people, that what kind of a writer are you, or what kind of documentarian are you in your team. So almost 34% of people from that 2,000 of them reply that they are a lone writer, which is quite amusing because we don't realize that there are so many people who are sailing in the same boat like we are. So this is how I think you can see that 34% of documentarians are lone writers. And the other part is there are just 2 to 4 members in the team, which is like the next constituting 31% of it. So either it is that you are the only person in your team or in your project, or it's max to max 2 to 4 people. So I think a lot of you might resonate with it. So he also gathered what are the reasons of this, why people do not want to hire more documentarians, or what is the reason that you are the only person here. So if you see the reasons, you can realize that first reason is I'm alone on the team, but there are 8 writers throughout the company. So as I told, there are multiple projects, there are multiple products. So if I take my example, we have 4 products in our company that we have to cater to. We have search, recommendations, browse, auto suggest, and each product requires its own documentation. But you are the only person who is handling the entire chunk of products, which is very worrisome. The other reasons the people mentioned are no tech writers, but plan to hire some, and this is always in the pipeline. So in my company as well, we have been thinking of hiring another tech writer for over a year now, and this has never come to a conclusion. So there are so many people who have the same problems. So if we look at the TWT surveys that the team conducted here, and I realized that there are a lot of people who mentioned that there are almost 32% of people who are lone writers, while there are 35% people who are working in a team of 2 to 4. So I think that a lot of you might resonate that what I'm trying to say here. And I was actually amused by the reasons that there were from this team. Like, what is the most difficult part of your work? And if I want to take each part of it, it's going to take a lot of time for this session. But these all points, I think almost 80% of these points I have covered in my presentation, which I'm going to make sure that I cover. But there are a lot of things that are still in a situation where even I don't have an answer. Like I'll take one of this example, um, that I write for maintain and manage a documentation learning portal that consists of standard product docs and tutorials. I also contribute to in-product UI text. So I'm responsible for all of it. So I resonate with this because you are not just writing documentation, you're also writing video scripts, you're also creating images, you're also editing them, you're also writing for open source. You might be having open source code. So you're also writing for that README. And apart from that, you are also expected to write for the console UI part of it. But what we don't realize, what the company doesn't realize, is that there are two types of technical writing, not two, there are a lot of kinds of technical writing, where we have product documentation, where we have UI documentation, where we have open source documentation, and all three are different. The writing styles for all the three product styles is different, but we are supposed to write for each and every part of it, so which is very difficult. And the second part which I resonate with a lot and which I don't have an answer for is that how do I get the feedback, which I think a lot of people have a problem with, that how do I take feedback? Because you are the only person who's writing it, then you have to also go back and forth for the feedback, which is a very tiring process. And this is something that I still don't have an answer for, because I have to go back and forth for feedback. So all these reasons, all these responses, I have tried to cover almost everything here. So I think we can move ahead with it. So if we look at it, what exactly are the reasons behind these stats is, a lot of companies have low political capital for tech writers. So if you want to ask your management also, you'll realize that a lot of companies don't hire a lot of tech writers because they are low on political capital for writing. Also because it's not yet, it's the third point is what the reason for low political capital is that it's hard to realize the importance of good docs. So I think you also might resonate with it, that you really don't, not you, but your company doesn't realize the importance of good docs. They have hired one person, but they don't realize that having a team is more efficient or better. And plus, they have a very short term focus, that if I have a product, I'll just write the documentation for that product. And this is a very short term focus. What they don't realize is that the long term benefits of it, like there are going to be updates, there are going to be new features, there are going to be a lot of things that will be added in the documentation for which you might require a team. So I think these are the reasons behind why companies don't want to hire tech writers. So the biggest question is, to be or not to be. Like, do you want to become a lone writer, or do you want to work with a team? So I've covered pros and cons for both of them. So if you want to be in a team, the benefits of being in a team is that you are going to have more discussions, you are going to have constructive feedback. There are a lot of times when you just want to brainstorm the idea with someone, right? So if you're a lone writer, you lack all these things. Then then there is a possibility of having multiple follow-ups. Then there is a possibility that you won't have better time management, but being in a team, you know where your time is going to be invested in. And plus, you are not going to have imposter syndrome, because this is one of the biggest drawbacks that I have as a lone writer, that I have immense potential for being having an imposter syndrome, because I always doubt my own writing skills. So when you're writing something, you are not very sure that if you have defined a feature very well or not. So this keeps on kicking in, kicking in, kicking in. So that's why I think, so this is one of the screenshots that I've taken from my office, that when we are working in a team, this is how it looks like. Like, you have a proper structure to it, you will describe everything. But when you're working as a lone writer, it's very difficult that you'll get this. So I'll get to the lone writer part of it. What if you want to be a lone writer? So what I have realized over these 2 years of being a lone writer, that I've become a better leader. I've actually taken decisions in the product team, because I have been a part of the product team since the beginning. So you are a part of the feature development, you are a part of the product, whatever upgrades are coming, So you are taken from the initial stage of it, and which is a very good part of it, of being a lone writer. Plus you are the one who is creating the problem and you are the one who is solving it. So it's almost like being an entrepreneur, that you are being the problem creator and solver. So these are the things that I've really liked about being a lone writer. So again, it's not a choice, but it's just thrown on us that we have to be a lone writer. So I just wanted mention that how do lone writers benefit. So over these years, these are some things that I have personally adopted. So a lot of you might be also working in companies, and a lot of you might be freelancers as well. But the thing that I realized, that apart from your company work, apart from the work that you're doing for your money, there are a few things that you should take in consideration, which is the major part of it is these 4 points, that try to be a part of a community. So I cannot stress enough how important it is. Like, you people might be part of this TWD community, which is an amazing thing, because you know where to discuss your problems with. You know you have you have people with whom you can discuss your problems with. So similarly, I was part of the Write the Docs community, where there were times when I didn't know how should this text look like. And I just used to paste it there, and I used to say, please give feedback and please suggest how can I just improve this text. And there was such prompt responses from all over the world. This is how you improve as a writer as well, as a community person, and you network a lot. You meet so many people globally that you realize that what you are writing as a writer in India, it's very different than how writers are representing globally. So I would stress that please become part of a community, not just Indian community, but global communities as well. I'm going to also suggest which communities you should be a part of in the coming slides. Uh, the second part is be a part of side projects. So this is again one of the most important parts, that start exploring, because when we are working for a company, we are very very, like, the focus is just on the product documentation of the company. What we should focus on is that apart from our work, what else is the writing part which interests me. So for this part, I would suggest that there is one competition. I don't know how many of you know about the Google season of docs. This is one of the competitions which has been just made for tech writers. So I'll just give you a brief about it, that there are a lot of open source organizations who put out their projects, and then you have to identify which project resonates with you. Then you have to pitch for that project. And when you pitch for that project, you have to send a proposal for it. And if you get selected, you get to work with that organization for their documentation for over 2 to 4 months, which is also a paid thing. So you might be thinking that I'm just about the time management thing, right? That I'm not even able to handle my product documentation in the company. How would I just go about working for side projects? But I'll tell you personally, I have had a lot of work to do as well with respect to my company, with respect to community work, because I handle 2 to 3 communities. Plus, but even then, I realized that I do have time to invest in side projects, because it has made me a better writer, because you are again the part of that global community, and writing for global people, writing for global organizations. And plus, the organizations who participate in Google season of docs are very eminent organizations, like you have Linux, you have WordPress, and all these eminent organizations are looking for tech writers, looking for proficient tech writers like you. So this is what you should participate in. Try to put a proposal forth. Even if you don't get selected, you can also opt for volunteership. So again, I'm going to discuss the project which I was a part of in detail in the next slide. Third part is try to create style guides. So again, this thing is which I realized after being a lone writer, that there are a few things which is very specific to our product. So we do have Google Style Guide, we do have Chicago Manual Style Guide, we do have Microsoft Style Guide. Those style guides are more specific to the writing style and the grammar part of it. What I want to say is that create a style guide for your company, create a style guide for your product, because there are a lot of things that you might, if imagine if you want to leave your company the next year, you have left a legacy which is not going to be a problem for the next writer who's going to come in. And it is also beneficial when you are in the company, because if you want some developer to make changes to your documentation, it's very easy for them because they can just refer to the style guide. So you don't have to go back and forth. So try creating a style guide for your product or your company. I also have a sample style guide, like a template for it. I might share with all of you if you would want. And the fourth part is try to look for hackathons or events. Like we had recently in 2020, we had Hacktoberfest. Again, I don't know how many of you know that. So this is one hackathon which is open for all the open source organizations. And it is such a good opportunity to build your portfolio, because you can go in, you can look for projects on GitHub who are participating in Hacktoberfest, who are participating in the hackathon, and just try to pitch them. Like try to pitch what they are trying to say. Propose that I can write a documentation for your product. Your product looks really cool. How about I write documentation for it, or the README part of it? So this is how you try to build your portfolio. So I think these four things are really important if you want to build your portfolio and you want to grow as a loan writer as well. So the next part is, what is the process that you should follow? So this is the first point, is very basic. Like this is the fundamental part of being a loan writer or being a tech writer anyway, that you have to gather requirements from the SMEs. But what happens after that is, this is one of the responses also that I received from one of the TWT member, that there are so many things to do, and every time someone pings that this is urgent, this is needed to be done now. And because I understand, I have been at that position that every time someone pings me, it's that this has to be done now. So it's on to us. You have to create that stability in your company, that being a tech writer doesn't mean that you can just throw updates at me anytime and anywhere. So for this, what I did was I created an Excel sheet. Um, so we do create a lot of things, like you can create a Kanban board, you can create a Trello board, or all those things for managing your tasks. But what I did was I created an Excel sheet, again, for which is a template which I can share with you people. So try maintaining that Excel sheet with your tasks, with your reporting manager, along with the dates, the due date, and everything. Just share that Excel sheet on the Slack channel or whatever is your mode of communication. Share that with your team, with the product managers, and ask them that whenever there is a task, just fill in the sheet with the proper timeline. So what happens after this is, whenever a task comes up, it also helps you maintain the task that you have created, because I have realized in the first year, I was actually not documenting my task itself. So when it comes after the yearly bonuses and whatever happens in your company, when you have to actually record what have you done, you don't really have an answer to it, because there are so many things that you have done over the course of 1 year, but you haven't documented it. So I would highly recommend that please document whatever task you have done, which is very good for future references as well, and which is also very good to maintain the prioritization, which I think is a problem with a lot of tech writers here. The third part is maintain your glossary. Why I say this is because, again, similarly, like for style guide, there is a nice thing which we have about the glossary part of it. There are things that I'll again give you examples in the further slide. Suppose my company deals with e-commerce sites, but there is a certain symbol that we need to write e-commerce as in. So there is a small e and a capital C, and that's how it is written in the entire documentation. So just try to maintain what that part of it means. So this part comes with the style guide, and try to maintain a glossary as well of your terms, because there are specific terms which are very close to your company. So what is CTR, what is POV, all these things are very specific to your company, and try to maintain those terms as a glossary. I'll tell you what are the benefits of maintaining a glossary. You can always refer to them. There are a lot of customers who come with questions that I don't know what this term means, and you can just refer them to the glossary part of it. And I'll also tell you what are the benefits of glossary in the further slides. The fourth part is again keep a track sheet of your tasks, which I've already told you. And the fifth part of it is measure rubrics for your documentation. So I think this is a very new thing which I've tried after reading Tom Johnson's blog on measuring rubrics for your documentation. Rubrics is like in school, we had teachers who used to maintain some criteria for measuring how our essays used to look like. And those criterias were like on readability, on clarity, on all those things. So try to create something for your documentation as well. Why am I saying this is because when there is a term that, when there is someone who asks you that what have you actually done, what is the proper part of what are you measuring for your documentation, so this is what will help you. So this is what is going to help you. So what I have also realized is measuring rubrics for your documentation involves a lot of feedback from your customers as well. So if you're a B2B company, you should take in consideration, talk to your sales team and ask them that what was the customer feedback, where were they lacking, what were the points that they didn't understand in the documentation, what were the flaws. So I always do this, that I keep a constant touch with my sales team because they are the people who are in constant touch with the customers. So keep a track of all those things. Keep maintaining a sheet of flaws in your documentation, because customers are the best people who are going to tell you what is working in the documentation and what is not. So this is how you try to create. I'm still a noob in creating this rubrics, but I think I'll also have a template for this pretty soon, which I might share. So the next part of it is, what are the tools we can use to manage our work? So I personally use Airtable, Zendesk, Google Sheets, Kanban boards, Microsoft Planner, Drawer.io. I also use Sketch for creating images because it's one of the most easiest tool. I think you might also be using Snagit for creating screenshots and editing it. So these tools you can use for maintaining your task and your work, which I think a lot of you might be already using. So I'll just skip this. So what exactly is this action plan? So when I was telling you about the style guide, this is what I meant. That if our company, so my company is dealing with customers, right? But while writing the documentation, are you talking to the customers or are you talking to the users of the customer's website? So be extremely specific about those things and try to maintain those in a style guide. So this is a very classic example of, should it be users or should it be readers or should it be shoppers or customers? So because if you keep confusing these terms in the entire documentation, you're also going to confuse your readers, because readers will never know, is this something that I need to do or is this something that my users should do, right? So be very specific and try to create a style guide where you write all these down. The second example, as I told you already, that will it be e-commerce where the E is small and the C is capital, or or it should have a hyphen or it should not have a hyphen. So these might look trivial, but these are extremely important. This is what is, as tech writers, we are supposed to do, that simplify things for the readers. So try to create a style guide and make everyone in the company aware of your work. So this is something that I've learned the hard way. So in my previous organization, I never used to document or I never used to communicate what is the work that I'm doing. But recently, I realized that it is very important to make your company employees realize that what exactly are the tasks that you are into, because according to them, you are always free. So just don't make that happen. So define a process. If you're talking to SMEs, keep on raising tickets. If you have that Confluence board for your company, keep raising tickets that this is what is pending, this is what you need to make sure that you do it right now, and all those things. Make everyone in the company aware of it, and you also invigilate it throughout, because sometimes the due date might pass and you are not invigilating it through. So make sure that you are invigilating it through. throughout. Also, there was one more response that I just remembered, that the response was, I don't really have a lot of tasks on my plate. There are almost 2 to 3 tasks that I have in a day, or that's it. For such people, I want to strongly recommend that become a part of a community. Because when you, again, the same thing, that try to do as many things as you can. When you have just 1 to 2 tasks, you know that you're not contributing a lot to the company documentation. So try to evolve yourself by being a part of communities or side projects. So one of the projects that I'm part of is the Google's Good Docs project. What we are trying to do with Good Docs is we are trying to create templates for open source organizations. So if any of you is a part of an open source organization, you might know that open source organizations do have a very good product, but to integrate those products, we do not have a very good documentation, and that's where the entire process lacks. So the, you know, why don't open source organizations have a good documentation? It is because they have a blank page anxiety, that how do I even start? Even with a lot of us also, this might have happened, that you want to create a feature update, but as soon as you open the Google Doc, you are blank. That, oh shit, how do I start? How do I even start with this blank page? So to strategize and to overcome that blank page anxiety, with Good Docs, we have created templates where those templates will help you build your documentation. So those templates will already have sections that you need to just fill in with your content. So this is such an amazing thing. And I'll tell you how I landed up with Good Docs. Last year, when I was scrolling through the season of docs organizations, I realized this is something that I would be very interested in. I started to pitch them, but I didn't send a proposal because I wanted to first work and see how this goes on. So I just opted for volunteership. What happened in the course of those 7 to 8 months was I had over like 100 people with whom I networked. They were such good meetings. I had such a good time talking to all of them. Plus, if you might know, I have also published a blog on Tom Johnson's I'd Rather Be Writing, which was like a, you know, miracle happening for me, because not a lot of people have guest blogs on his website. And being a part of his guest, you know, his website is something that I would cherish my entire life. And this all happened because I chose to be a part of a community or be a part of organization which is not my work profile. So that's why I suggest that, you know, start building yourself into this process. What also happens with building templates is, even if you are busy, you can hand over these things to engineers, to developers, who can take over and, you know, just fill in the content in it, and maybe you can be the editor later. So these are the benefits of being in a part of a community. So I would highly suggest all of you to just go through and look for Google Season of Docs, which is also going to happen this year. And yeah. So my takeaways from this was, you know, create a style guide template. Uh, don't go for a lot of tools. Try to maintain. If you are very comfortable with Excel, just create Excel sheets for everything that you do. Even if you want to measure your testimonials, your client work, your feedback, just create Excel sheets. If you're very comfortable with Kanban boards, just create that. So just take a tool and maintain yourself with that. Always mention your process to the entire company, that this is the process that I follow. Even if you keep on creeping in between that this is a task that is very urgent, try to say that this is a process I follow. I already have a lot on my plate, and this is not something that I can do urgently. So be very specific with your processes. And again, fourth and highly recommended part is become a part of a lot of communities. So, yeah, I think I have tried to cover a lot of things that I've personally faced, and I'm open to questions if you have any. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ankita. We have 1 or 2 questions. Preeti would like to see the template style guide, which you said you might have.
Sure, Preeti. I will share all those things. Do we have a process that we can share with all of them? later maybe.
Puneet, Puneet, are you
Hello.
there? Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, what happened? Sorry, I lost.
Ankita wants to share the template of the style guide that she has. So how is it possible for us to share it with
Yeah.
all of
So
them?
she can email us, and we will put in the Google Drive and share with all.
Okay,
Awesome, awesome.
that's great. And Ankita, there is another question. So there are many people who are introverts and who hesitate to participate and approach communities. So any tips for such people?
Oh, that's a very good query because not everyone is very comfortable talking to a lot of people.
Correct.
So, this is something personally I would follow. Just talk to one person from one organization. That's it. Like, you don't have to talk to a lot of people. For this, for breaking that ice, I think the best thing is try to post a question. So, when
Okay.
you post a question, when you post a query, you have you already have broken that ice part, that when you post a question, someone will answer this, and that's how your conversation goes ahead. So you don't have to be very particular that you are cold texting them. So you can avoid that. So don't cold text. Start with a question and see, hey, I saw that you were a part of this organization, or I saw that you are a part of this team. So I'm really interested. How do you think I can be a part of it? So when you start posting such questions and do a back research of those people, you have already been a step ahead of it. And I'm telling you, people globally are so, so, so nice that they'll reply to each and every query that you'll have. And that's how you start building it. The other suggestion I would have is try building your profile on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
LinkedIn is also one such platform where I have met a lot of nice people.
Mhm.
You can start posting on LinkedIn, and that's how you also network with a lot of people. So these are the two things that I would suggest you people having. Yeah.
That's great. So Satya has another question. He was asking, can you please list a few communities which you are a part of or which can be participated in?
Okay, so currently I'm a part of Write the Docs community. I'm also part of the Good Docs project, uh, and also Season of Docs. So all these three communities are different, and you can be a part of all three of them. So if you want, you can write down. And again, if you want to, like, if you will be sending emails to all the people, I'll also share the links to those communities.
That's great. That's great. There's another question by Tanke.
Yeah.
She's asking, how do you manage relations with developers? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's such an interesting question because I think all of us are in such a spot that why we don't get a lot of, what do we say, feedback, instant feedback is because we don't have good relations with the developers.
Right.
And as tech writers, this is something that, so my problem is I'm actually very social. So I have this tendency to build better relations with them. Okay, again, I'll tell you one thing. Being a part of two tech writing organizations, I've realized this. In the previous organization, I was not very vocal about the feelings that I have about my documentation or about the product that we have, which led to a lot of problems. But in this organization, I have been very vocal about what problems I do have. I constantly used to go to their place and ask, hey, how did you build this feature? What is the tech that is running behind? So, what happens is when you start taking interest in the background of that process, is when they think that you are taking this part seriously. Otherwise, what happens is they think that it is just a documentation update, and I'll just give you the text, you just edit it and put it in the documentation, because this has happened with me a lot. But when you go to their place, you start asking that how did you build it? Even now, when you are in a virtual environment where everything is happening virtually, you can just text them that, hey, can I set up a one-to-one meeting? But I'm not able to understand how is this feature working. So try to just ask them, because they feel very, they feel amazing when someone asks them how is this feature working. And this is, I think, this is a tendency with every human being, that when you start taking interest in their profession, they automatically start liking you more. So I think this is the part where you can work with it.
Okay, cool. Bhavik has a question. He's asking, do we have any feature versus cost of an online wiki help tool to bridge the gap with end customers' expectation and converge with internal stakeholders, something like that?
Okay, I didn't understand the question
Uh,
completely.
Bhavik, are you there? Do you wish to elaborate a bit? Bhavik Patel? Okay, we'll move on to the next question till
Oh.
he. Bhavik, are you there?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
Please go
Yeah.
ahead with the
Yeah,
question.
actually, the question was like, no, I am just exploring few tools, no, and want to
Okay.
prepare a chart myself. So I
Right.
just thought if somebody would have it, maybe would have done it that exercise in past, maybe the Confluence or other, I had just happened to have seen
Oh,
one document, one tool like Documentation 360,
yes,
right?
yes, yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
which one no at least should be there in our mind, because recently I am about to work on a project of revamping a online help guide, right?
Okay, okay.
So if where probably I can have something in mind now,
Oh,
whether the management accept the proposal or there would be multiple points. One is the feasibility to switch on,
yes,
right?
yes,
Because
right.
in my past
Mhm.
organization we had Confluence since last 6-7 years, but because maybe it was not a need of the audience and business, we never published the online help. It was remained kept and nothing was much developed. We used to prepare more on Word. So
Mhm.
like that feasibility in terms of what features we have as well as what cost it incurs in terms of
Right,
implementation efforts and cost, price,
right,
money.
right. So, do you want a list? I can share a list because I do have a lot of tools that I have explored. We have had Beta, we have had Document 360 with Markdown, then we have Gitbooks, then we have WordPress. So, there are a lot of tools. If you want a list of it, I think there is a blog on it. I'll share the link of the blog after searching. So, you can just connect with me on LinkedIn and I'll share that link with you. I think there is a blog on all the tools. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you, Bhavik. So, as we are actually running short on time now,
Oh, no problem.
sorry.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, I would suggest everyone to please connect with Ankita for any further questions that you may have. Thank you, Ankita, for an amazing session on the loan writer challenges and problems. And it was a great presentation. Shrutika, can you uh, just take over and tell people about our next session that we are going to conduct?